Cue video.
Cue video. Let's talk about, let's talk about our favorite Pokemon. And, let's begin with me.
Sure.
Let's do our, honorable mentions first. Mine is a Pokemon from Generation 5. That's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. In the Unova region, it is, I would say, the best dragon, the Dragonite, the Tyranitar, the Salamence of Generation 5, Haxorus.
Fuck you! That was
God!
Jesus. Man. Motherfucker over here, they just fucking shit. I don't know. Yeah, Haxorus. No reason needed, he's just cool.
My honorable mention that I had is Pokemon that he's not one of my favorites, but I probably have used him a lot, and a lot of people would probably hate me if I used it in like a battle because he's completely overpowered. But it's Seaking. Seaking's awesome because he's what, half dragon, half ice type. So
What are you
can't be hurt
doing,
by
Jimmy?
anything. So yeah, so I have Seaking on my list. So again,
It's the worst Pokemon.
you're easy.
It's hard to face.
That's what I mean. That's why it's awesome.
Sam took mine.
You big baby.
I don't know. I'll say like Blastoise or Venusaur or something. I don't know. Those two are just amazing. They're awesome.
Alright. What's your number 5, faggot?
Shit, I forgot my number 5. My number 5 was Sceptile from Generation 3 Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. Fuck, dude, this thing is all... I didn't mean to say that. This thing is really cool. I just think when it comes to the grass final evolutions for all of them, the Sceptile is probably the coolest looking of them all. He's just a badass looking Pokemon. And I always enjoyed using him. Like, pretty much all 3 of the grass evolutions for Generation 3 are pretty awesome in my opinion. I mean, he looks cool. He's fun to play. I mean, he's kind of like your typical grass Pokemon in a way. But I just thoroughly enjoyed Sceptile a lot.
My number 5 Pokemon is one of the legendary dogs from the 2nd generation. That's Raikou. I love Raikou. Raikou's awesome. Main reason I like Raikou so much is I just think his design is a little bit more different and kind of cooler than the other two. Like, I understand, Suicune, looks a little bit more like I don't know, say like a hound, and then Entei's kind of more like a lion. But Raikou, I don't know, he's kind of a little bit more lanky, as like a feline, or whatever, and I think that's cool. I really like thunder types, because, they're electric, same thing. Same fucking.
Actually, electric and thunder.
Yeah. But he's probably one of my, I just love, those kinds of Pokemon, so since he's a really cool legendary, that's that, it just makes him twice as cool to me, so, yeah.
I always call them cats. I guess they're, technically in the game they're called dogs, but I always thought they looked like cats.
That's the thing, they do kind of look like cats, but then I guess Suicune kind of does look like a dog in a way. A little bit.
Yeah. My number 5 is Croconaw, the middle from Totodile to Feraligatr. I just like Croconaw. Feraligatr is cool, but for something about Croconaw, his design, the way his eyes kind of look evil with the black, and he just looks kind of badass. Look like I don't know, just like a cool Pokemon, I guess. I loved his design. I loved using him. He was great. It was always difficult for me to not use him because I try to keep all my Pokemon on the same level, around the same level, so they're all helpful. But I just like using him a lot. It was just cool. The first sort of crocodile Pokemon, and he looked awesome. My number 4 is Deoxys because he's a space Pokemon. He came from, Lord knows where, out deep in space somewhere. There's a lot of mystery to him, and probably, arguably, my favorite Pokemon movie is Destiny Deoxys. And I just love the movie. And I felt such a connection to Deoxys. And the reason I think I love Deoxys so much is because you can't get him in the games without like a cheat or an event or something like that, like an action replay, I think is what they used to be called, or an event. But it was just you couldn't come by Deoxys, and it was, is a special Pokemon, and its design looks cool too. I can change forms, and I just love the whole idea behind Deoxys, which is I'm into. I read a decent bit into some things like the Pokemon mythology, and sometimes they're based on actual myths in real life and stuff like that, and but I just like the story behind him. I like him or her. I like a lot of the stories behind some Pokemon, and his is one that I appreciate.
My number 4 is, it's the only is the only Generation 3 Pokemon that I really have on my list, and it was one of my favorites that I used to use all the time, and that's Mightyena. I love Mightyena, just because of the way he looks. I mean, it was just one of those Pokemon that, I mean, it might not be the best, but I mean, like, it was just naturally a Pokemon I was just naturally drawn to. And it was mostly the looks. I mean, it's alright, depending on how, any Pokemon can be great the way you train them up, but I just, remember, Mightyena was just always one of those Pokemon that I would always have, like, consistently with, like, every, like, team that I made in Ruby or Sapphire, so, yeah, Mightyena, that's really all there is to it for that decision.
My number 4 was Dragonite. Who doesn't love Dragonite? I mean, Dragonite is just a tank. Dragonite just, it can learn so many different moves of like thunder and fire and ice type moves, and it's a dragon. Pretty much all dragons are pretty good. And it's just one of those like high level Pokemons that are in all the generations where the final evolution takes place at like level 55 or something like that. So you really feel pride in getting Dragonite. Dragonite just rules though. It's so powerful and it looks so cuddly and awesome, but it's not. Number 3, I had Gyarados. Gyarados is just rules too. I mean, it's like Dragonite, it's a tank. I mean, the more you level it up, the more, it just rules everybody's face in Mom. And I always, every time I played second generation games, always had to get Red Gyarados, and he was always in my team. It was just, I always felt so happy every time I had Red Gyarados. I mean, Gyarados otherwise is still really cool, but Red Gyarados is where it's at in my mind. Gyarados is awesome. He just looks badass too. He looks scary and just awesome. Yeah.
My number 3, I had Tauros, which is from Generation 1. I like him just because he's a surprising, like, really good Pokemon. And kind of like Tyler said, if you bring him up right, he could be a tank. And also he's just, I feel, one of the best well-rounded Pokemon, especially from the first generation, where you could teach him Surf, you could teach him Thundershock, you could teach him Earthquake. You could teach him all kinds of shit just like that. So he was just he was really useful in almost any situation, and that's why I loved him. Like I said, you go into the Safari Zone, and just kind of like, you're just trying to catch things. And then, you might just have him in your party or whatever, be using him, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait, I can teach him, you're trying to pick a Pokemon to put Surf on, so you can get to, whatever the seventh gym is in the first gen. I don't remember what the...
Cinnabar Island?
Yeah, that's it, Cinnabar Island. You get there, and you're like, oh, I need to put Surf on a Pokemon so I can get through.
It can learn Surf?
It can learn Surf.
How?
Gyarados?
No, Tauros.
Oh.
You can learn Surf. I was just like, and I discovered this, I was like, huh? And then I just looked at a bunch of other ones, and I happened to have, like, Thundershock, and also happened... And then after a while, he learned Earthquake, and I was like, what the hell? So I very quickly fell in love with him. And if I can find him in any generation, I always try to find a Tauros. So that's my number 3.
My number 3 is Mew. Like Deoxys, I love the mythology behind Mew, it being the ancestor of all Pokemon, and just the mysterious sort of veil around Mew. It's made a few appearances, but its major appearance was in the first Pokemon movie, and just Mew itself. I've always had a bit of nostalgia thinking back to the first Pokemon movie, how interesting it was, how it was, you know, Mew versus Mewtwo, and that was always cool. And then just Mew itself, being one of a kind, being a Pokemon that, you know, you have to have an event or, you know, use some type of cheat or something to get Mew. It's, you know, you don't come by Mew out in the wild, which I wish you would, but, Mew is just a cool Pokemon. The way it looks, I don't think it looks bad at all. I mean, it's so white, pink, and you know, I've always just liked Mew. It has that mysterious sort of aura around it, and how it's sort of like an ancient Pokemon, and you know, it's just cool. And yeah, I just like Mew. Number 2 is Snivy, because if you've ever watched the TV show, Snivy is a complete smartass, and just kind of a, you know, not a know-it-all, but he has a bit of confidence, and you know, he's just funny to watch, and he's good in the games. I love the way he looks. Snivy is just the character of Snivy. I just love. He's such a little douche sometimes, but I love it, and Snivy's funny, and he's good to use in the games. And I like the design, like I already said, and just a well-rounded Pokemon.
So for my number 2, I know that when we did our worst Pokemon of each generation video, I put Eevee on that list. And that was because Eevee by itself is borderline, you know, really kind of useless. But its evolutions are really good. You know, my second favorite Pokemon, which is my favorite Eevee evolution, is Jolteon. Jolteon, honestly, I think looks the best out of, you know, all the Eevee evolutions. I think it's also one of the coolest just because its speed is so high, you'll just about always attack first, and that's always really cool. And I just like, I don't know, because like I usually went for him because like if you played like Red or Blue at that point in the game, like it always seemed like there was such a like a leaning, you know, there's the fire starter, well, the water starter, the grass starter, but there really wasn't, unless you played Yellow, there really wasn't an electric starter. So I would go on like, well, I need an electric type so I can, you know, kind of try to balance out my team a little bit more. So when I first started playing, and I started thinking about playing more, I picked Jolteon, but then I just grew to love it as Pokemon. And I mean, yes, there's been like every generation, a couple new Eevees that show up, but I mean, honestly, I think this is one of the original ones. I think this is honestly the best Eevee, and I think it's, like I said, it's my number 2 Pokemon. Jolteon's awesome.
Number 2, I had one of the legendaries from the second generation, and that is Lugia. I love Lugia. For the longest time, Lugia was my favorite Pokemon of all time. I just like kind of the whole kind of mystery around Lugia in ways. It's just so cool. Both Lugia and Ho-Oh were just some of the coolest legendaries out there. But Lugia, I love the look of Lugia. It looks so badass all the time, and it just rules. It rules everybody's face. It's powerful, but it has speed, and it's just I love Lugia. I've always been drawn more to the games where I can get Lugia. For instance, like when Soul Silver came out and stuff, I bought Soul Silver instead of Heart Gold, or I would always play Silver instead of Gold, just because I can get Lugia. And Lugia is just so cool to me. So yeah,
Aeroblast. Too, was a good one.
Aeroblast rules, yes. And number 1 for me, a legendary from the second generation, that is Suicune. I think out of all 3 of the dogs, cats, whatever you want to call them, Suicune is the coolest. It's the most mysterious. Crystal is my favorite Pokemon game of all time, and I just still liked how in Soul Silver and stuff, you know, there was that mystery surrounding Suicune. You would always run into Suicune, and Suicune was the first Pokemon that was just like, I really, really want to know more about this thing. And Suicune was the very first Pokemon that I ever got to level 100. I love Suicune as a whole. Yeah, I mean, it's more water and ice-based and stuff, but I've always been also drawn a little bit more towards the water Pokemon. But Suicune, just, to me, it looks so cool. I love the little, you know, whatever you want to call it, the little horn type thing that it's got going on. And it's just the little shits on its back, whatever you want to call it. I don't know
Its
what to
mane?
call it. Yeah, kind of its mane, I guess. But just, it looks so awesome, and I just love Suicune. I would use Suicune constantly, all the time. And just, it's so powerful. It's so pleasuring to use.
My number 1 is also from second generation, but it is the final evolution of one of the starters, and that's Typhlosion is probably my favorite Pokemon. I just, especially from watching like the TV show and all kinds of other things, you know, I loved Cyndaquil. That's kind of where this you know started, and then I loved Quilava, and then eventually, you know, when I got Typhlosion, I was just completely in love with it. I love the idea of like an anteater, or whatever the heck Cyndaquil and all them was, just the different like, you know, animals that they became, and Typhlosion, you know, just looks badass, like with the mane of fire coming out and all that, and I just love using him because he's really powerful, and I mean, kind of like how Tyler said, he's usually had a leaning towards the water types. I've usually had a leaning towards like really liking the fire types in all the generations. And then it's really cool. It's one of the, you know, it's one of those really cheap things in the Pokemon universe. You know, you can teach Typhlosion Thunder Punch, which when used correctly can be OP against, because you know somebody will be like, oh, use Water type, Thunder Punch, 1-hit KO. What? So, and also just I've had so many. When I did actually like on like a bus or something would face other people playing Pokemon, I would use Typhlosion, and Typhlosion was like my go-to guy, and I did my best when I used him, and like Tyler said with Suicune, I got Typhlosion was my first level 100 Pokemon, so I love Typhlosion a lot. He's awesome.
That's my favorite Pokemon. And that's our list for today. Nothing needs to be said about it. I mean, it's Charmander.
Wow.
I mean, that's all that needs to be said. Everyone knows Charmander, so that's the list.
I mean, yeah, I try.
That's that.
Surprised. Why not Charizard?
Because without Charmander, there is no Charizard to
Yeah.
sing.
True.
Okay. I'll allow it.
That's our list.
Yeah, so let's
Ending very abruptly.
tell us yours in the
Thanks.
comment section.
Yeah,
We'd like to know.
thanks for watching. Definitely interesting. Lots more Pokemon videos to come in the future. See you around.
I took away the climax.